Welcome to Women Who Push the Limits. Are you ready to find your voice, speak your truth, and change the world? Then you'll be glad you joined us for this amazing conversation. So let's get right into today's episode. Here's your host, Lynn Murphy.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us today for another episode of Women Who Push the Limits. I'm Lynn Murphy, your host, and I am thrilled today to be able to introduce you to our guest who is brilliant, driven, and absolutely creative to the nth degree, Laura Jaramillo. Laura, thank you for joining us today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Lynn. It means so much to me.
So let me tell you a little bit about Laura. At the age of 4, Laura and her mother immigrated from Cali, Colombia, where they were refugees seeking asylum, political asylum from all the violence and the turmoil that was going on in their country. And she has survived, she has thrived in the United States, and she wrote her first song when she was in 4th grade and is still writing songs. And she recently released a song that is absolutely gorgeous. Her new single is The Forgotten, and it's going to be part of an upcoming album that's called Everything That's Wrong With Me, which highlights the journey of learning and truly unconditionally loving yourself. And her journey has been amazing. And she is such an inspiration to people to truly love themselves. So she says she's determined to promote self-positivity with her free-spirited personality and radiant vocals. And I've listened to her sing. She has a gorgeous voice. And she helps soothe the soul and encourage self-healing. Her music reminds listeners that it's okay not to be okay, but it's not okay to stay that way, which is one of her songs that I've heard her perform, which I love. And she says her mission, this is a beautiful image. Her mission is for music to be used as a weapon to battle loneliness. Laura, that's just such a profound statement. And thank you for being here today. And thank you for everything that you do to promote love and creativity and acceptance and all of that in the world.
No, yeah, and I feel like you say that, and every time I'm just like, oh, like it sits so heavy in my heart that I feel like loneliness, the thought in that word, and how can we find a way to really like take it on, because I feel like a lot of times like we don't talk about it, how even right now, we're dealing with the coronavirus, how it's kind of just the main thing that people are having to deal with, that when we're alone, who are we and how do we treat ourselves? What are we doing to actually be okay, to feel okay? And how can we, actually have a message that's going to inspire us to say, hey, you know what, I don't feel so great, and I can, be able to move forward. And as a community, we all say, hey, like, we're going to do this together, because it's not, loneliness comes because we think that we're alone, right?
Yeah.
It's well, like an invitation.
And for some people, it's hard to reach out and to really admit that they're feeling that, or to admit, it's almost like we feel inadequate if we aren't up to the challenge, or always 200% perfect and that type of thing. So, to encourage people with what you do is just, it's so needed right now. Always, it's needed.
Always.
So, thank you.
Exactly.
Well, so tell us what pushing the limits means to you and how you've pushed the limits.
Yeah. I really love that question, because it's, it makes me think, I never realized that I was pushing the limits, because for me, it was like, I just needed to go in, and I was so determined. I knew that since I was in 4th grade, I was like, I am going to become a singer. And what that meant, I knew, even if I didn't know how to play any instruments, I didn't know anything, that I had to learn how to figure it out. And that's life, right? And if that mentality is what I think kind of laid out where I am today, because I graduated at 19 with my bachelor's degree. So I was doing dual enrollment, and I was like, I need to study, I need to get out of school so I can really start focusing on my music, because I knew that if I were to stay longer there, I wouldn't be able to be as creative and as open to all of the things that I wanted to create and my message. So it was very interesting. I went to school at Full Sail University, and so I'm an audio engineer, and it was so great, because I think that it was 2 girls in a classroom full of like 50 men. So
Oh, wow.
it was, and they're carrying these huge heavy speakers, so it was always like, how can I be, as good as them? Because it's, you sit back and you realize, oh man, like I'm not going to get the head audio engineer. I'm not going to be mixing the band because there's a bunch of guys that, they're stronger, and it's that competition that you start to kind of internalize, right? And for me, it was like, I'm not going to let that be an excuse. Like, that is an excuse as to why many women before me, felt like they had to not push this limit, get to this next level. And so, it was 40 guys, and 15 of them wanted to be, at the final show, we had, one person mixing the band, and it was, all of our, everybody was focusing on building this show, and that was like our final project. And I got actually voted to be the audio engineer, and it was an honor, and it was because we were all fighting it out, and it was like, I always knew that if I wanted it, I had to do everything possible to get it. And it was having to stay later and learning how to mix, and, proving to the boys that I could mix just as good as, just because I couldn't lift this heavy speaker didn't mean that I wasn't as good at the job. So that was really important to me.
So what is it that they saw in you? Did they see that in you? Your determination?
I feel like that was it. Like, it was like, I would show up and I would always be there. I would go to all of the events that were happening, and also just creating the community. Like, I loved my classmates and they loved me too. And it was creating the fact that, they would think, and they would also vote, because it was a vote. So, it was all of us standing there, and then the whole class voted to see who they would choose to mix the final project. And so it was beautiful to see my classmates, come together and say, hey, they're all great candidates, and everybody would have mixed it as beautifully, but, we're going to choose Laura to do it.
Wow. What an honor, huh?
Yeah. So, that's just a story that makes me think, I was 18, 19, not thinking about these things, not thinking that in that moment I was pushing the limit, but it was an honor to know that there's two, 3 girls in the industry that, in the industry that compared to these 100 men. And I'm there to say, hey, like, we are strong enough mentally, and we can actually do this as well in different industries. And now with music, it's been also, what can I do as like a Latin American, somebody that comes from Colombia, and the thought that, first generation. So all of these, you start to instantly create limitations without even thinking, my family, didn't speak the language. So, maybe I'm not going to get the best jobs, or maybe all of these things that you start to just like layer and become part of your identity, that I, at a very early age, was like, this is not who I am, because that doesn't sit right with my heart. And I, like, if you sit and you actually sit with your heart and say, this is who I am, I feel like you really go and you chase your dreams and you do what you're here to help. Because it's like, if I'm here in this world, I'm going to help. And how am I going to do that, right?
Well, so at an early age, you were already pushing the limits. You weren't letting anybody put you in a box, even though, I know we all do kind of put ourselves in a box, and even
society,
Yeah, society. And we look at what others think or what others say, and that's not really who we are, is it? Not who you are.
No.
And even thinking about just the physical strength, saying, well, I can't carry the big heavy things that these men can.
Yeah.
But, we don't have to all do the same things. Your mind is probably 500 times more creative and faster than those guys who could carry all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So they needed you needed them to carry, and how does that work, right?
Yeah, it's a beautiful balance of learning that we really let ourselves, I feel like we're our worst enemies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Without even thinking about it, we are our worst enemies, and we think that we can't do these things. And for me, like The Forgotten, which is a song that I just released, I was 14, so I'm 24 now, and it took me 10 years, and I knew that the song was not ready, but I was going to put it out because it was very important to me. And it was, how can I be able to capture and get to really understand, to not just like, visually, sonically, and create an experience, like an immersive experience with music. And so it's been beautiful to see all of the people that have come together to do it, because it's not just me, it's, you know, the videographers, it's the storytellers, it's all of these things that, you know, create the message. It's, and me being the messenger doesn't mean that I'm the message, it's just I'm the messenger, and I'm here to just, you know, talk what, you know, generations before me have been doing. And it's the fact that we are all hurting, and, you know, if we're hurting, we're probably going to hurt other people, right? And how can we how can for a second we create a space where we can just show up vulnerable and be like, hey, I'm hurting, but we can heal. And that's not like, hurting is just like the admitting, right? Admitting that, hey, like, I'm hurting, but I also know that I can have the tools to get back up and be even stronger, and create, you know, people that don't judge me for the things that I need to work on. Because I think the things that we need to work on are, at the end of the day, like who we want to be, right? Like, we always want to work on the things that are going to make us better. And so how can we push people to really do that so that we can have a better society?
Well, you know, and I just finished an interview with a woman who's in her 70s, and she was saying kind of the same thing. She doesn't want to stop. You know, why just because of her age would she say, okay, I'm done with my career? And her thing is about serving and about helping people. And here you at 23, right? 24?
Yeah, 24, yeah.
24 now, you know, and you're saying the same thing. And so we're all connected. It's the same, whether we're in our 20s or in our 70s or in our 90s, whatever it is. It's, you know,
I just have it as a frequency. It's like a frequency, like, right?
Yeah.
Just gotta tune in.
That's a beautiful way to say
Yeah.
it. Yes, it is.
Where it's like a radio. If we could just play if we could all just sink into that channel, and just, it's like this channel of like abundance and love and unity, right?
Yeah. Well, and you are so great about building networks and building community. Talk to us about how you do that, and what your mindset is around that.
Yeah, I think I feel like for me, it's the reality that I never felt like there was a safe place. So having that mentality, I realized that if I didn't feel that way, I had to create the safe place. And so it's been a very beautiful journey. Me and my best friend, we work together, and we work a lot with the LGBT community to organize safe places. And so we throw parties, events, and we work with, for example, the last event that we had like live artists, we had amazing small business people that vendors that had, you know, churros, but everything was just so crafted, you know, to be able to just create a place for people to show their art, to show their crafts, and come together and make a safe place where, you know, you feel like, hey, I know that the people in here are going to take care of me, and their whole purpose of throwing this event is to take care of me. They're not here to, you know, actually like take from me. And I think that when you go out to a lot of places, a lot of bars, that's what I felt like. For example, I remember that I would go out to places and I didn't feel safe. You know, there'd be people that would inappropriately touch you, people that didn't understand what it was to respect women, to respect whatever gender it was. So that's was very important to me to create, and how to be able to not just say, hey, it doesn't matter. Because I guess like the big thing that we realized is that we were going to places and events that this isn't where we wanted to be, and we didn't feel like this was what our community was looking for. So if this isn't what we were looking for, we had to go create it. And that was our main focus. And it's been beautiful to see now the community of people. We have drag queens, and we have just, you know, young creative local, you know, talents that are going to college, and we're saying, hey, come here and show your art, whether it's comedy, whether it's just putting a smile on people's face. Like, that's what we want to create.
Well, and you are so creative, so you're attracting all these creative people. And how do you distinguish who are the people who, you know, are the best to have in that community, or who are the ones you want to keep out, other than the ones who are grabbing you inappropriately?
Right. And I think that that's why we talk about, you know, safety, right? And being in Orlando, our community was really hurt with Pulse, and you know, the whole world was kind of shook by the reality that there are people that really do, you know, want to hurt people. And I think that you felt that weight so heavy here. And for me, it was like, hey, I know, and we want to honor everyone that, you know, went through this tragedy, and say, hey, we can still create safe places. We're not going to get affected by we're going to honor the tragedy, but say, hey, let's come together and spread love in this, because that's all that we need. It's just hurting people saying, I don't feel safe to go, I don't feel safe to be in a place, because you don't know who could walk in at any moment, right?
Well, so instead of just worrying about it or complaining about it, you're doing something about it, taking that action. And that's why I think you're a woman who pushes the limits, because you take action, you do something about it, whether it's about writing your music or, like you're saying, building this community.
Absolutely.
And so, Laura, what is it that drives you to do this?
I mean, I really think that it all stems from the fact that I think that when I was younger, like I said, I felt so alone.
Yeah.
It was, I can't sit here and try to talk about this message that I didn't profoundly feel. And it's like, when I wrote these songs, and when I wrote it, they were all like lullabies to myself. And I saw how, by like dedicating these songs to me, by like saying, hey, like maybe, for me, it was like it just being in a past relationship, and this person saying, hey, I feel like I love you more than you love yourself. And that's not what it should be like. And having somebody say that to you, and you just stand back and be like, wow, like what does even loving me mean? And I remember, it was like me just sitting there and saying, well, if I were to love somebody else, what were the things that I would do, right? And for me, it was like, I remember I would text myself, I love you, and I wouldn't read it. And then I would check my phone later, just because I knew that I wanted to have that notification, that just to like send love to me in that moment. And it started slowly by like changing my mind and realizing that I had been wired to just give and give and give, and then I was left with nothing, right? And I think that a lot of people experience this in such, crazy, or effects, whether it's like, you end up divorced, and it's because I feel like they really didn't take that time to love themselves. And how could I not, how could I lead by example and not follow the same steps as, many other people have, right? Because I think that a lot of times you carry what, past generations have, or you carry what maybe what unconditional love is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually conditional love. It's not unconditional,
Yeah, we give so that we get something back. It's giving to manipulate rather than giving to allow the person to do what they want to do, what they need to do, right?
Right. And it's like, how can you wake up to that? Because I think a lot of people, we can talk about it, but they don't do anything about it. They don't like, what are the things that we can actually start doing to change that? And for me, it was like, music was how I knew that I could find a way to help people, whether it was you listening to song and then you become more aware and you start become more conscious. It's as artists, we have to, get people to tune in, and music, I think, is therapy.
And it's that frequency you were talking about, it does things on a different level than necessarily just on a conscious level.
Mm-hmm.
It really does change us when that frequency goes through our bodies.
Absolutely.
And thinking about taking care of ourselves, I remember I interviewed a woman who was in Paul's mastermind. She's a flight attendant, and she says, one of the lessons she had to learn is you got to put your own oxygen mask on first, and that you're not going to be able to help anybody else if you aren't taking care of yourself. And that's so important. And I think women, I don't know about your generation, but my generation, it was like, take care of everybody else. You're last. I remember that with my mother. It was always, okay, everybody else is first and she's always last. And that was a lesson I learned and had to unlearn.
No, and it's funny, but I feel like my mom, I was talking to my mom literally the other day, and I was like, Mom, like, you really just have to take care of yourself and you have to love yourself. And then her response, and I think her response was so important because it made me realize what it is that she was feeling. She was like, Laura, I'm not like you. I don't know how to do that. And I was just like, what? And to sit here and to, to my mom to just like be real and to be like, I didn't learn how to do this. I see how you do it so beautifully, and I'm really happy for you, but I can't even begin to start to say, hey, I'm not going to put, the other people first. And it's been, the fact that even the closest people around you, right? It's how can we sit down and we have this conversation? Because it's like, I can see it, and you start to see how, I say, hey, Mom, like right now, I know that you want to take care of, my little brother and my dad, but can you first down sit and eat so that then, they'll be able to get their food, but you need to sit and eat first. And it's been such an interesting, because she started to now kind of shift. And it's funny how this beautiful message that I've kind of been singing for years, she's like now starting to listen and being like, you know, that song was really beautiful, Laura. And it's crazy to see the shifts of, hey, before it was like, I don't really know what she's talking about, but now it's like, oh my goodness, you know, you're singing something there.
Well, and it takes time sometimes, especially if she was trained to take care of everybody else first. There are all these layers you got to peel away first to get down to that, and it's one little step at a time sometimes. So now she's ready to hear it. So now you're her teacher. Isn't that interesting?
I know, and that's why you say, it's beautiful that no matter what age you are, there's still so much learning. And it's not to say that I know anything, because it's the fact that I always say I don't know anything at all. I just know that I want to be happy, and that's all that I want to promote. How can we find ways to learn and not judge, and just for a second, it be about other people, but the equation is I need to take care of myself so that then I can take care of other people.
Right.
It's this equation that I think is always off balance.
Yeah, because it's not about sacrifice to the extent that you're sacrificing yourself completely and there's nothing left.
No, and I think you said it's important, what you're saying. It's really important that we talk about it, right? Because I think as women, like, that's how we're programmed. It's not even that, like, I'm trying to do this on purpose. It's that's how we were raised to be nurturers and caregivers.
Yeah. So now you got a community and you're talking about it. You're helping each other and bringing out the best in each other. How exciting.
Yeah.
And I'm sure with everything you've done, I mean, beginning with living till the age of 4 in Colombia, but, coming to this country, you've taken risks, whether you initiated them when you were 4, probably not, but you've taken risks. So talk to us about what that was like for you and what the consequences are of taking risks or not taking risks.
Yeah. I think that, when you're younger, you don't realize, what risks are, right? Because you don't have anything to lose, right? And I hate that thought of, like, if you risk something, you're gonna lose something. And I think that what you're gonna lose is the fact that you can look back and say, hey, you did try, and even if you failed, you're gonna get back up and keep trying. And I think that for me, I know that whether people say it's risk, it's the fact that I needed to continue to move forward, and I needed to figure that out, and whatever challenges that meant. And even if it means, like, trusting in people, and then realizing, and learning that, hey, like, these are the people that you want to work alongside with me. And I think that was a big part of my story, that working with, some in the industry, you start to, meet people that just want to take from you. And sadly, I had very, very interesting experiences with videographers that ended up just really wanting to take advantage of me. One of them ended up actually, like, even stealing my identity. And it's people that, you trust, that you end up learning what it is and who are the people that you want, beside you. And how sometimes, like I said, you just give and give and give to people, and then there are people that are here to hurt you. And this reality that we have to also be able to take care of ourselves and then take care of others, right? And it's been this message, because I think that for me, it started off wanting to help everybody, right? And with that intention, you end up realizing that there's always somebody that's going to want to hurt other people and take advantage of that. And so with me, that has led to even just really focusing on how to really be that message, but also be safe and promote safe places, right? Because you start to see, I'm creating safe places, but sometimes in these safe places, there are people that I want, to hurt. And so that's been the risk that I think that you take, right? As you put yourself out there and you end up interacting with people.
Well, so then what do you do when something like that happens and people take advantage of you? You've taken a risk. I mean, maybe it's people taking advantage. There are other things that maybe didn't work out the way you wanted to. How do you mentally deal with that or emotionally deal with that?
Yeah, I think that's such an interesting question, because emotions for me have been something that I love to write, like, music about. And I think that that's how I've understand emotions and been that you can't really sit and say, hey, don't feel that. You're angry, don't feel that, right? You just hold it in and then don't talk about it. And I think that is what hurts people the most, when they hold in these things. And maybe that's what ends up, even just hurting, you end up hurting yourselves, and even just like your mental state, your body, because you hold on to this trauma, you hold on to this, you end up feeling like you have this weight and this heaviness because you're not letting go and moving forward. I had my one of my best friends, and I talk about him a lot, and I say he is just like my inspiration, and he's my protector. He passed away 2 years ago now, so back in February, and I say that with these sad things, and you sit and you're like, why is this happening? I didn't deserve this. Like, what, you start to come up with these things, and you start to try to understand, and you realize that that's not what it's about. It's not about saying what I deserve or what I need to happen or what I need to control. It's the fact that, this is my life experience, and how can I take life and be like, if this is what I need to understand and this is what I need to go through, how can I walk into it and find the support and find the team of, hey, I don't like to be sad. So how can I, hey, if I'm dealing with a hard time, how can I lean onto people and be like, hey, help me move past this and move forward through this? Because the reality is we don't have it all figured out, and we think that we do. And when we go through times of, struggle, times of things, crises and things that you never expected would happen, that is when we have the community. And that's, even just like having you in the Mavericks program, I know that there are people there that are not going to let me fall. Right. And that's something that sits so beautifully, because it's like, we're here to lift each other up, and to know that if it's a bad day, I can call somebody up and be like, hey, no, you're going to get up and you're going to do it, because we're going to keep fighting. And even if you have to drag your own feet, you're going to get back up and keep going.
Would you say drag your own fear? Is that what you
said? Drag your own feet, because I feel like that's
feet. Okay. I have this picture of dragging your fear. It's like, okay, you're behind me now, right? I'm going on.
That's good. Exactly. I love that.
Because we're going to have failures. I mean, if you term them failures, I don't know. How do you think of things when you quote fail, or when other people call them failures?
See, and I feel like I hate the word failure, because that's
why I hate to say it.
Yeah, it's like, for me, in my, even just saying the word failure that's you quitting. That's you saying that you're not going to keep going. And my shift in what I tell people is, how can you fail? The only way that you can actually fail is if you give up. And I know that I'm not going to give up. So that means that this is just another challenge, another thing that I have to problem solve. Because if it's something that needs to be fixed, you can fix it. And if you have that mental clarity to not let those thoughts overwhelm you, then that's when I feel like we can actually move forward and just see it as in like, hey, when you look back, you're like, wow, that wasn't actually a failure, or it was just something that happened that, I'm now even stronger for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I know one woman I interviewed said she doesn't look at it as failure. She looks at it as feedback. She said, when I got a divorce, it wasn't that I failed at a marriage. I just didn't know yet how to have a great relationship, or, a great marriage, or something like that. So when we look back at those things and say, yeah, I just didn't have the skills yet, or I didn't have the experience yet, or whatever it was. I think Paul talks about the word yet, right?
Yeah.
That word is too. We're moving forward. We're doing it. So what do you do then when you encounter obstacles or challenges?
Yeah, I think that interesting you said that, because I feel like right now has been one of the biggest obstacles that I've ever gone through. And it's been as somebody that like loves to move around, I love to dance, I love to be very active. I've been dealing with I hurt my Achilles, and I haven't been able to actually walk for the past 6, I think now 7 months, now that I'm looking at the date.
Oh wow. Yeah.
And so it's been, I think having that question has been like what I've been dealing with right now, right? Because it's an everyday, I think, question, right? It's not, will I succeed tomorrow? It's, what are you going to do today to succeed? Because if you put it in tomorrow, then you're not going to get anything done today. And so it's been kind of being mindful, and I use that word because I feel that's been my word of the year. How can I be mindful of today to make today the best that I can be, instead of putting so much heaviness and so much weight on knowing that, yes, there are all these things that I want to do and I will do, but I'm never going to get there if I don't have the clarity today to be able to take the right steps. And that's what I always want to encourage. How can we really create, again, a safe place where we can have this clarity so that we can actually keep growing and instead of saying like stagnate and not growing or thinking that this is the only thing that we can do. And like you said, whether you're 70, there's something that we can do. Whether you're 20, there's something that we can do. And we all need to learn how it is that we kind of fit into this like puzzle piece.
Yeah. Well, and Laura, I know you've got dreams. You talk about your dreams. How do you make those come true?
Yeah, so it's been I think that the fact of me saying I don't know, I don't know anything, and having to have I now have this amazing mentor, Keith and Paul, that have really taken, this mind shift and being like, if you don't know, then how are you going to figure it out? And the fact that I think that a lot of times we don't have, like you said, we're trained to think that we have to have it all figured out. And then you end up having so many more hiccups and so many bumps along the road because you didn't reach out for help. And I think that if I wouldn't have reached out to even just get a mentor right now, I knew that there was going to be so many hiccups along the road, because I know that I have such a good heart that I just want to like love everybody, and I just want to like accept everybody, and everybody's great and they're not gonna hurt me, and it's like that's a very beautiful mentality. But I also need to also get another perspective from people that do business, that do have this, I guess like my artistry needs to be kind of grounded and also level-headed into how can we really create this and not just be this dream that it's now this reality. And something that made me even think is recently I've been kind of dealing with the word dream, and we talk about the American dream as as an immigrant, the American dream. And I think that the American dream sometimes even is just to stay sleeping, to not be awake. And
Wow. Now that's a really interesting statement.
yeah.
Dream, just staying asleep, huh?
Staying asleep, yeah. And it's and there's this imagery of just like sitting back and like just watching the TV and watching life pass by, and we're all in this dream state, and we're not really awake to see, hey, Australia is burning up right now, what are we going to do together?
Yeah, because it is global, isn't it? I mean, as much as some people want it to just be provincial, but it's such global. I mean, it's our Earth. We're living on this together.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody was saying the other day that, and I don't know if this is true, but that the astronauts who are in space are seeing less pollution, more good things happening kind of now that we're not all moving around as much, right?
I think so. Yeah. And I think that it's somebody was saying it's like, hey, to go back to the way that we were would be also not moving forward, because I think that this is going and showing light to a lot of things, and especially whether it's our medical industry, whether it's how we are coming together to even just support each other. What does that look like, and has it been designed to be as efficient as we thought? And maybe it's not efficient. Maybe it needs to be rebuilt. And how can we rebuild it to be even better and stronger so that we can, be able to create, a working class, a middle class, and, and high income class. And it just not be that this 1% owns, 99%, which when you think about it, and you think about growing up, realizing that is the world today, how do you even, how can the youth actually be inspired to say, hey, well, only 1% of the wealth, has 98%. How can I even begin to get into this 1% when there's no one around me, right? It's like, how can I even get there? And it's that's basically like 99% of the world right now. We're all in this discouraged state where we think that we're never going to have enough, and we're living paycheck to paycheck, and that's not a mentally healthy place. That's not going to actually like get and bring abundance into our lives.
Well, so when all this is going on, what is it that inspires you? How do you keep going?
Yeah. I think that a big thing for me is that I think it's definitely like a personal journey, because I think that when you look within, I know that I still have a lot of things that I want to work on, and I still have a lot of things to learn, because when I try to think of like what I'm going to do, it becomes such a stressful thought, because the reality is the future, you know, who would have thought that we would be stuck inside right now? Nobody. You don't know what's going to happen. And all I know is that I'm grateful that in this moment that am sitting down and I am having to be still, I'm finding time to sit in happiness, and what that has meant, and what that means to create, to be able to sit and meditate and create happiness, that a lot of my friends have no even idea of like that concept of understanding that you can clear your mind and meditate and actually experience peace. Like I've been doing a lot of breathing exercises and a lot of meditation to be able to just actually take care of myself so that I can be inspired. Because I think a lot of the times people are like, oh, you just have to be inspired, and then like when the inspiration hits, then all of a sudden I'm gonna make these songs. But what if you're not inspired? What if you're stuck inside and you don't feel like doing anything, and you don't want to get up, and you don't want to wake up, and you don't want to be productive? So it's like, if that's your state, how can you break free from that? And it's the fact that you have to sit with yourself and be like, that's not what you're going to be today. You're actually going to get up and you're going to do the things, and you're going to, you know, contact the people. You're going to check off the list of things that you need to get done. And that's how I feel like it's been me motivating myself every day and to keep moving forward. And then every year it's like, I knew that I was doing the right thing because more opportunities came, instead of sitting there and being like, I'm going to sing and then people are going to listen to my music. But why are you going to listen to my music, right? It doesn't matter. There's tons of people, but it matters to me because I've sat with myself and I know what I'm putting out, and it means so much to me that whether or not, you know, you connect with it, it's about, I know that somebody will, because I know that what I'm saying has brought healing to me and to people around me.
So you're going inside to assess what's going on, and then you're taking action. So, you know, you're motivating yourself, inspiring yourself. I think that's a beautiful way to do that. And you will connect with people, but you're connecting in a very authentic way. You're not just writing music about things you know nothing about. It's stuff that you've experienced. And how do you experience it if you aren't out living life, right?
Right.
And making mistakes.
Exactly. I think that sitting here and saying, I think that a lot of times we put artists on pedestals. And when I look at the music industry, it's like this perfect women with like bodies, and like you have, you know, the nails in it. It's like this image of like this like perfect person. And then you come home and you look at yourself and you're like, well, I'm not that weight. You know, I don't look like that. I don't have the same skin color. I don't have, it's like all of these like society things that you don't even realize are happening subconsciously. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So what other habits do you have? You say you meditate, you're mindful, your mindfulness
I
practice.
love dancing. I love salsa. Salsa dancing has been something that I've been taking a year. I was taking a year of salsa dances before, just because I think that connecting with my culture, my mom is actually a salsa teacher
Oh,
in Colombia. So she was beautiful, amazing dancer. And I knew that I had to connect with my culture as well. And how could I feel more of a Colombian woman, and how could I represent who I am more? And that was something that for me, I took this just long journey of accepting who I was and what that meant, and knowing that dancing is something that runs in my veins. It's something that I have to embrace. And I would go out to event, like, you know, parties with my family, and they'd be like, Laura, like, come on, dance like your mom. And I'm like, no, I can't do that. And I was like, no, like, I can do this. I'm going to figure this out. So that's been a very cool thing that I've been kind of focusing on, and it's keeping me motivated once I get back on my feet. I love to take on a lot of projects, and something that I've been really growing on and it is been this family business, and we've kind of turned and started doing Airbnbs. And it's been very beautiful to kind of start to grow, because we started with this amazing partner, and we ended up growing, you know, to about 100 houses. And then once that grew, we ended up having the contract ended, and we were like, okay, we need to figure out how to move forward from that. And now it's been creating our own business, and we currently have 3 properties that we've been managing on Airbnb. And it's been this light of, you know, when we started taking, you know, these Airbnb properties, we would design them and we decorate them and make them into vacation experiences for, you know, or since we're in Orlando, Disney's right there, and we've been just creating experiences. And as an artist, I've been, okay, I look at the hospitality industry, and I look at ways of how can we create a new revenue for artists, because I think that in the music industry, it's been there hasn't been much change. There hasn't been much evolution other than just like now there are independent artists that are doing very well and great. But if you're not making music, there's no other way to connect with your fans. And that's where I have kind of come up in developing with other artists and other people to create immersive experiences by artists. And the dream is to, whether or not, you're going to be going to travel somewhere, how can you stay in a place where you can also support artists and be in an experience? So currently speaking with an artist that his big main message is how solar energy is going to really help the world and could really provide a lot of solutions. Because I feel like as artists, we've now limited ourselves, and I want to expand and think bigger and create this, whether or not, for me, it's been like, the idea came from experiencing my favorite artists is, for example, home. If Paramore were to have an Airbnb experience and she were to decorate the whole entire wall as like all of the albums, and you would go and maybe have like the shoes of like the, like everything that I would like absolutely love to experience, how could I create that and then create that for myself, and then now for other people, because I feel like other people would love to do that as well, to go into an artist's mind, whether it's like my favorite snacks, how can I treat my fans right, how can I serenade them, even if they want to book a band that's going to come play my music, and again create not just, hey, you have to come see me at a performance, a live performance, or you buy my merch or you buy my music. You can now experience something by the artist.
That is so creative, and I've heard you talk about that before. You're so much more clear today than when I heard you talk about it several months ago. So I hope you're moving forward with that concept, because
Absolutely.
has anybody else ever done that? This is your idea. This is your
Absolutely. No, that's been the big thing of how to move forward and figure out all of the logistics, because I have, all these beautiful ideas. So now it's meeting the creative people that can also be able to put these experiences together, and figuring out, working maybe with different artists and how we can be able to take over, rent a house, and then start actually working with, I have mural artists that are ready to now start painting the houses. So it's been now finding the location and bringing this dream to life. And I know that the coronavirus has kind of halted everything a little bit, but once we get back, it's giving me more time and clarity to be able to reach the people that I know that we can create another way for artists to make music, right? I mean, I'm sorry, another way for artists to make money, because I think that right now, the fact that we can't gather around together in an arena to listen to, them perform has created a huge shift to now there being this, interweb communication, lhether it's live, whether it's Zoom, that people have been connecting with each other. There are things that are going to be changing and things that are going to be emerging. And I would love to create that.
Well, and to be able to create that now when we've got this downtime, and then when people are ready to travel again and ready to, I mean, people are just going to be bursting at the seams to get out.
Yeah, I'm ready.
So you've really taken on, and I don't want to be stereotyping here, but at a very young age, you've taken on tremendous leadership role it seems like in everything you do, because I know you're working in your family's business with the Airbnb and with your property management of the properties. Before that went a different direction, and with your music and the community that you're building. What is it that made you want to grab a hold of your power and claim that leadership role?
Yeah. I think that's a great question, because I feel you never think about being a leader until everyone looks at you and they're like, okay, what next?
And then you're the leader, right?
And then I'm like, oh, right. And I think it ended up happening because when for so many years you are at the table and you're not heard, you end up having to have, get a louder and louder and louder voice. Right? Because if you're not listening, I'm going to be louder.
Yeah.
And I think that that's kind of where it was raised in a community where that's what it is, where the way that we communicate is we have to get louder and louder and louder. And I think that when I look at all of the women in my family, we just are loud women. And it's a beautiful thing, because I think that my mom has always been, hey, you're going to keep going. You can't give up. And she was going through so much as, a mother, coming in with a 4-year-old to another country, you know, just literally a suitcase. I can't even imagine. I feel my mom was, you know, not even 30 at that point. So I think back and see the amount of strength and then the amount of power that it takes to just say, hey, my life is not going to be it's not the best quality. I'm not safe, and I need to, you know, seek protection. I need to create this place, because if I don't create it, then I'm gonna, you know, suffer. My children are gonna suffer, and my future is gonna suffer. And when you kind of sit back and you realize that that is the thought that subconsciously I was raised in, you know, and I look back and been like, hey, I know that I'm here for a reason. And I look at all my family and they're in Colombia and I'm here. What am I going to do? I know that I look back and I look at all my aunts and all my family members that are not, you know, doing as well financially because they don't have the opportunities, because, you know, they do live in a world where women do make less money, and the opportunities that I am blessed with, they do not have. And I think life has blessed me with the ability to be able to travel a lot. And one of my best friends, Galvin, who we started the events, he works for JetBlue, and so we were able to he made me his travel companion. We would travel, you know, to a lot of places, and I think that we were traveling to a new place every month, and every place that we went to, we were able to see and connect with. It didn't matter what state you were in, what country you were in. It was this human race, and we saw that this world that was made so huge and has built these walls and has, you know, made, you know, these passports and these flags to make us feel so divided, how we really are just, you know, really truly human. And I think that that message made me sit back and just like, it hurt me so much that I knew that I would not live a complete and fulfilled life if I didn't speak up about it, if I didn't actually take action towards the future that I needed to create. Because it's not even about me. It's about, I know that if I don't create this future and I don't do this, then no, like, who else is going to do it, right? Or somebody else is going to do it, and I want to be there with them. And that's been the main message of the fact that I can't sit back and I can't watch, you know, the world that I live in continue, because my sons and my daughters are going to live in a place where they do feel safe.
Mm-hmm. What a beautiful thing to be able to do, and to have that drive, you know, just to make sure that things are happening. And again, I say, you're someone who takes action. You get out there and you make it happen, but not for yourself. So you're someone who gets out there and you take action and you make sure that it happens, not just for yourself. I mean, you're doing it for yourself and for your children to come, but you're doing it for humanity. And I think that's just such a beautiful thing to do. And that's what we need now, is more people who are looking out for humanity and being willing to take that leadership role and not just sit back and, you know, watch TV and eat bonbons, that kind of thing.
Be in the American dream, living it, being asleep. Exactly. I think it's a beautiful like imagery that made me kind of wake up and be like, I need to wake up. We need to wake up. We're sleeping.
Yeah, no, I love how you said that. I mean, that gives me a whole different way of looking at the American dream. It's like, okay, maybe not.
Yeah.
The American awake experience that we need to be experiencing. And I met an author years ago who wrote a book called Grow or Die. And, you know, that's really it. If we don't keep growing, what's going to happen? We're just stagnating. We might as well be dead because we're taking up space. But, you know, what's happening? And I think of people who've retired. I can't imagine retiring. Okay, so I'm 70. I'm not ready to retire. I got a good another 20 years to go.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm not ready. No.
Yeah. You can't even tell that you're 70. What is 70?
70. Yeah, I don't know. It's a number, right?
Mhm.
But, you know, I think, do I feel 70? I don't know. What does 70 feel like?
Yeah, I'm supposed to feel great. I know that I'm supposed to feel great by looking at you. And that's what, like, as a woman, like, that's what we need, right?
Yeah. And you've lived a long life. In 24 years, you've done so much more than a lot of people have done, especially a lot of women. What is it that surprises you most about your life so far?
I think what surprises me the most is, you know, that I think that what I've come to understand is that what I say that I'm going to do happens. And I think that doing that over and over again, you start to realize that you create your own future, right? And so I think that for me, it's been, how am I going to create my own future? Because it's surprising to say, hey, I'm going to release this album and I'm going to, bring people together, and I am going to create this community, and, people are going to, be able to use this as a weapon to battle loneliness, that for, like, and I say that, and I feel it, and I want to create that. And that's my whole heart right now. And in the past, it was, whether it was graduating school, whether it was, making, being the audio, engineer person that was chosen, whether it was, being a leader in my community, or just playing in my church, or being the audio engineer. I think that for me, it was like the fact that I know that we are all here for a reason, and that we all have gifts. And if I'm not using my gift, then I'm not helping. And so I think the biggest surprise is when you start to see that, hey, the way that I'm living my life has created, this abundance because of the way that I am allowing, that to come in. I'm not sitting here so scared of creating my future when I know that this is what I need to do. And I think for so long, people that feel called to, whether it is, to just make an impact, or feel like they have a voice, or feel like they have a message, we are, again, our worst enemies. And we end up thinking that this moment is the worst moment, and we're never going to get out. And like, whether or not in this moment people are not listening to my music, or whether or not I don't have, the $1 million, it's like all of these excuses and all these things that take away from the clarity. And so how can we be manifesting our own futures? How can we really be saying, if this is the future that I want to create, then what am I going to be taking action? Because if it's, it just can't stay in my head, it has to be done, and I have to be taking avid steps. And a big like message that I say is, wake up, just wake up and take a second, breathe, and go and do it. Like, go write down the list that you need to check off, like, because you need to check it off, because if you're not, then you're going to beat yourself up, and if you beat yourself up, then you're not going to wake up tomorrow, and then you start the cycle again.
Yeah. So again, back to taking action, right?
Right, you just have to take action. You have to push the limits, right?
Yeah. Pushing the limits. And you're such an amazing creator, and you're seeing that, at an early age. I wish I had seen that in myself at that early age. But, you see small things, big things, whatever it is, you see the results of that. And then once you see those results, you can keep going on to the next thing. Okay, got that done, did that. Okay, I see the results. And then you can encourage yourself to say, yeah, I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
How are you going to see the results if you give up? You give up.
Yeah, that's the failure, right? Is when you give up, like you said before. Absolutely perfect. So I know we've been talking for a long time, and I can't believe it's been this long. Would you please share 4 or 5 tips for other women about pushing the limits?
So the biggest thing that I've come to say and like learn is, you really have to love the person that's looking back at yourself in the mirror. Mm. And I think that the first step is, you really, what does that mean? Right. And it means, hey, whether it's, your cellulite, whether it's, your pant size, whatever it is that you think about it hurts you, we have to sit here and we have to learn how to love it. Because if other people around us sit and say, what are you doing? Why don't you love that? We have to become aware of that. And we have to become aware that this is the person in the mirror is like us, and we only have one body. Mm-hmm. And so with that, I think that it's been learning what does taking care of your body really means. And whether it's been eating healthy to feel good, to be able to have enough energy, to actually get these things done. Because I think a lot of the times we only talk about parts of the equation, but it's you have to feel healthy to be able to even have enough energy, and to, whether it's right now, it's been being in pain for me. So how do people deal with pain if they aren't able to actually have enough energy? And when you start understanding what pain is, something for me has been, the body doesn't actually start experiencing pain until 60% of the energy is used.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
How interesting.
So the rest is your body like doing everything possible to heal itself and to be able to do that. So when you experience pain, what is happening, and how to be able to just take my energy to heal my foot has been something that, for me, it's been, I have to exercise that, I have to do it. And before, you didn't have those habits, and I've now have implemented, for the past, now 7 months that I have to get up and I have to work out and I have to do this to feel great. Because if one part feels weak, everything else feels weak. So taking care of your body, I think, is very important. And then taking care of your mind, I think, because it's your body, your mind, and then also your heart. So what does taking care of your mind mean? And your mind, we have these thoughts that sometimes become the best of us. And I think as somebody that, as a problem solver, is somebody that loves to see what are the data, what are the things that we need to be able to actually get the things that we don't. I think sometimes we get stuck there and we don't find a way to get out of there. So it's how can we, create this full entire picture that I think, we can be, and it's clearing our brains, clearing the thoughts, meditating, like saying the brain is a muscle.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to train our muscle, just like you sit and you do push-ups to get your your biceps to be strong. You want to get your mind strong, and there are exercises to exercise your brain. And I think meditation, for me, holding my breath has been something that has helped me a lot. and finding the second where it's not just bad news, and it's, hey, like, I'm okay and I can ground myself, that the fact that I'm alive, that I'm breathing, that that there's beautiful flowers around us, that there is this nature that is always here to make us smile. So it's like, how can I bring that clarity in moments where you need it the most? And then your heart, I think, is the next kind of big part of that, because your heart also makes you do things that kind of unbalance ourselves. And so sitting with your heart, and for me the hardest part is sitting with pain. Like, nobody wants to sit with pain. Nobody's like, hey, let me sit here and like feel it. And that has been the biggest lesson for me, to actually sit with my heart and the parts of me that you don't even realize that you need to sit with. And sometimes you're so great at sitting with other people and making sure that they feel okay and making sure that their hearts are feeling all right, but sometimes you don't realize how much you hold on. And for me, it's been just like, I remember it was the most therapeutic thing that ever happened. Just like sit and just like hold myself, and like just like for that hour, just think of how much I love myself, and to not need anybody else to help me, just like my actual like arms to provide what it was to feel love and to be loved.
Boy, that is so beautiful. I think of another woman I interviewed who talked about saying into a mirror every morning, looking in her own eyes in the mirror and saying, I love you. And how hard that was to begin with. And you're talking about physically holding yourself to do that.
I know, and then think that that's exactly what I had to do. I think that my heart was feeling so heavy and so hard because there was stuff that were stuck there. And it's like, maybe it's like me holding back tears. Like I know I love to be so positive, and I love to just always, really see the good things, and that's great. But sometimes you need to sit and be like, hey, you were hurt, you're hurting right now, and it's okay to feel that. And I think it's embracing all of these emotions, to know that, to say that you can't feel something or you shouldn't feel something is also belittling how, we feel emotions, and belittling the fact that we should be able to feel all of these emotions and they shouldn't be scary. But somehow we made pain, we made sadness to be this like awful thing, and to say, hey, no, like what if you're sad, you're feeling hurt, and why are you hurt, and how can we communicate through it? How can we, really bring healing?
Well, and it's more stressful when you're hanging on to that. Because then you hang on and you hang on and you compensate and do all kinds of things, whether it's physical pain or emotional pain or whatever. We need to get rid of that.
Yeah, and I feel so much lighter now, and I can tell that like my body's not holding on to those things, and as once you sit with it.
Yeah. So speaking of that, I forgot to ask you earlier. You talk about Laura Light.
Yes.
L-I-T-E. Is that your full name, or is that the name you've taken as an artist? Tell us about Laura Light.
That is my stage name, and it's basically, for me, even though it's it's my stage name, I think it's just become, I think, what I identify as well too, because for me, I want to bring light into these places. If I know I'm in the room, I'm gonna be positive. I'm gonna make you smile, and that's just who I am, like innately. And so I connected so much with Laura Light, and it was so interesting. It was a good friend of mine, actually. We were hanging out. He was like, "You're such a Laura Light," and I was just like, "What?" And yeah, he just called me that. And so it was when he said that, it instantly was like, that's it. Like, I really want to just bring light into these places. And that's just been my message. Because it's like, if you're not spreading light, you're spreading darkness, right?
Yeah. Well, because when you first said that, before I ever saw it in writing, I thought L-I-G-H-T, that's so perfect. You are Laura L-I-G-H-T, light. And then I see it L-I-T-E, but that's, that just makes more sense because that's light too. You're bringing the lightness as well as the illumination, right? And the
Yeah.
joy and all of that. And you do bring that into the room, no matter what. And it's just wonderful to be around.
That's what I want to do. I love to make people laugh. I like to make people, smile.
Yeah. And your music touching people. When you were talking about the music and about the weapon again, when you mentioned that, I just see this image of not exactly a lightning bolt, but something like that, where it's coming from the artist and it's going into someone else. It's that energy thing, that exchange of energy,
Oh, yes.
just kind of like exploding inside somebody. Oh, amazing.
I feel like it's just, I have so much energy that's like what I end up doing. Like, I'm just like, ah.
Sending that lightning bolt, right?
Exactly. It's intentional.
Yeah, it's beautiful, Laura. And your music is just incredible. When we first got together in Jamaica, and heard you sing, and then listening to your new release for the Forgotten, just such amazing things. And then I did watch some of your other videos too. So it's amazing. I love it. I love it.
Thank you so much for your support.
Well, and I'll ask you for your contact information, but first let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience and me today?
For me, definitely it's don't give up. Even if the voice in your head is telling you to give up, don't. And I think, a big reason why, we connect, and even if you're taking the time to listen to it, there's a reason why. And I think that it's because you're here to push the limits as well. And it's the fact that us as women need to create this platform. And I just want to thank you, Lynn, for everything that you do, and for even wanting to say, hey, we as women have to come together, because we're going to inspire ourselves. And if I know, just to hear that there are these beautiful women that are climbing Kilimanjaro at the age, of, I mean, how
89. She was 89.
I can't, it's just like, this is what it's about. It's about hearing these stories and hearing people doing it, and not their thoughts thinking that we can't do it.
Yeah.
And I really want, to create this platform of women saying, I can do this and I will do this. And I have, even if we don't actually know each other in physical life, we're sending each other this energy, we're sending each other this light to just say, do it, and like, come here and tell us about it, because we want you to do it.
And then the more we do it, the more other people are going to do it. And that's what I'm all about with this book and with the project, is how do we take these fabulous stories and amazing people like you and share that so that others are inspired, so they learn something from that and they're motivated to say, okay, I can do this. Whether it's an 89-year-old woman who climbed Kilimanjaro and set the Guinness Book of World Records, or whether it's Laura Jaramillo, who's just so full of energy and sending out this beautiful music, and your creative spaces that you're building and the creative community that you're building. It all works together, right? We're all one. It's all part.
You're invited. It's an invitation, right?
Yeah, and I'm just so happy to be part of that with you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Tell everybody how to get in touch with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I am Laura Light Music on Instagram and Facebook. That's LauraLite Music. And then I also am Laura Light Music on the websites. I'm currently launching the album Experience, but I'm still working on it. So we're still waiting on getting all of the finishing touches for that, which I'm really excited. And it's going to be on the website soon. So by the time I feel like everything gets out, it'll be really cool to be able to have everything how I dream to be, because, it's been steps and steps of moving forward. Right.
Right. Well, and they can buy your single from Amazon or from iTunes, right?
iTunes. Yep, exactly. So, and everything is all stream. You can check it on iTunes, Spotify, Tidal, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And everybody, remember, it's The Forgotten.
Yes.
Laura Light. Go find that. You will love it. You will absolutely love it. So
yeah, it's about spreading it, sharing it, and realizing that it's our message, to come together.
yeah. So thank you for joining us today. We're so glad you were here, Laura. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Women Who Push the Limits. We've been talking such intense, wonderful conversation today with Laura Jaramillo. I didn't say that right, did I? Jaramillo.
Jaramillo.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you to our audience. You've been here today for Women Who Push the Limits. I'm Lynn Murphy, your host. I know you've enjoyed this today. So please leave a review, subscribe to this channel, and share this out. You know people who would love to hear Laura's message today. So share it out with others. And now as we conclude today, remember this. You find your limits by pushing them. So remember to keep pushing. Thanks for joining us today. And Laura, thank you for being such a fabulous guest today.
Thank you so much, Lynn. I appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in today. Please like, subscribe, write a review, and tell your friends and family about this podcast. Don't be shy about sharing this episode with anyone you think would enjoy it. And if you want more information about this podcast and about this amazing project, go to womenwhopushthelimits.com. That's womenwhopushthelimits.com. Tune in next time for another amazing interview with an inspiring woman who truly pushes the limits.